Hello, and welcome to today's video, which is the continuation of the discussion on goal setting. So, I feel like January is such a good month to be talking about goals in general. So, I want to just continue that a little bit more and then dig into why is it that sometimes our goals they just feel off even when we're looking towards something that we actually want to do. So we might be writing down the goals for what we want and then having this feeling in our body that it's not going to happen anyway. Why am I doing this? Or I tried this so many times before and it didn't work. So what exactly is this? Why exactly is 2025 going to be different? Or maybe we look at them when we think, this is too big for me, or I'm not deserving of this, or there's so many things that can come up that don't feel good in the process of setting goals. And there's also the I don't want to make my goals too big, because if I do and I don't achieve them, it means I failed. So it is the imposter syndrome talking, it's the fear of failure talking, it is the feeling small, it's a fear of being too ambitious, it's a fear of coming across as being crazy. That is all talking. And this is just a lot of it needs work, continuous work, not just a one off work. And I think that's something that very often goes wrong when people get into personal development. It's we're being taught, oh, think positive and do this and do that. And we try it a few times and it doesn't really work. And then we think it's because it doesn't work. But the thing is, when it comes to rewiring your thought patterns, when it comes to creating a new self, it's not enough to do it once. We can't sit down and just say, I'm going to think positive, and then forever, from now on until forever, you're thinking positive. It's about changing your general response to things, and that comes through continuously applying the same work over and over and over again. The same way that if you do 100 sit-ups, you're not going to have abs, right? If you want abs, there's a lot of different type of work that needs to be performed in continuation over and over and over again for it to work. It's the same with the inner work. It's the same with how we think and how we feel and how we respond. Now, getting back to the goals, what I did for a really long time is that I would sit down and I would write these goals and I would feel so good about them because this is I really wanted it to happen this year. I really want this to happen this year. And I tried for a while and I put in the work for a while, and then eventually it kind of just life happens, or motivation runs out, willpower runs out, and I don't know how to continue it, and I just end up going back to being the person that I've always been, with some moderation, with some changes, and I would not reach the goals that I wanted so bad. And I felt like every single year I would set goals and I would not reach them. That was my dog, one of them. So and what happened is that I completely lost confidence in myself when it comes to the ability of achieving things that I want to achieve. And when you lose confidence in yourself to achieve things that you want to achieve, then next time at some point you're going to sit down and you're going to write down a goal and you're going to think, what's the point? Why am I even trying? It's not going to work. I've already had this experience so many times. This stuff doesn't work. And then you don't even really try. And every single year you try a little bit less, or you try a little bit less. Or we look at the goal and we think, I'm not deserving of this goal. Or we look at this goal and think, I want to go for it, but I'm terrified that I'm going to fail. Or we look at the goal and we think, what if I set this goal? Let's say the goal is 100%. What if I set this goal, I want to achieve 100%, but I only reach 80%? Have you ever done this? You set a goal for yourself and you make it 80%, even 70%, maybe 50% towards that goal. And then by the end of the year, you feel like a failure. You feel like you didn't do it, even though you've come so far compared to where you started the year. And when we set these expectations for what goals have to be, when we set this idea about a goal has to be all or nothing, all of it or I fail, all of it or it's not good enough, all of it or I shouldn't have set the goal in the first place, And we get into this energy that I don't even want to set the goal. But then when we don't set the goal, we don't really have anything to move towards because we feel like moving towards it is a waste of time. And we don't realize that there's so much growth in the process of achieving a goal. There's so much growth in moving towards a goal. And if you've made it 50% throughout the goal, you're a different person. If you've made it 50% throughout the goal, you are a different person who can do things that you couldn't do before. And the things that you can now do that you couldn't do before helps you achieve things in other areas of life that you didn't even think about when you set out the goal. So when I say that I don't really like goals, it's not that I don't like progress. I love progress. I love having something that works as a compass, something that works like a northern star. So even when I do leadership trainings and I work with organizations on what is the vision really, how can we talk about this vision in a way that connects with the employees? It's also about how do we create a northern star that all of us can work towards whatever it looks like in our own capacity, in our own team. And having a goal to me is like having that direction. I know where I'm going, but I'm not going to set the timeline and say if I don't do it in 2025, then it's not worth pursuing the goal. Think about the most incredible version of your life that you could have. The biggest thing that you can imagine. If it takes you 10 years, is it worth it? If it takes you 10 years to reach the goal that you want and dream of, and then you can have your dream life. And trust me, once you've reached that, there's a new goal, right? There's always a new direction. There's always something to move forward to. But if it takes you 10 years, is it worth it? And what many people do when they set out goals in the beginning of the year, they're like, if I haven't achieved it by the end of the year, then it's not worth pursuing. But guess what? The year is going to pass whether you pursue it or not. What if you only make 10% of your goal this year? Is it worth it? And you do another 10% next year and another 10% the next year. And after 5 years, you're halfway there. And then you spend another 5 years to make it. Is it worth it? And when we do this thing about setting goals that has a specific timeline, it's like we discourage ourselves when we realize that it takes a lot longer to do the thing that we thought it would. So are we not going to do it at all? That's also another thing about goals. We have this tendency to set a goal and then we think, if I can't reach it by this timeline, then I'm not going to do it anyway. It's going to be a waste of time. And we completely ignore all of the key learning lessons that we reach, that we gain in the process of just pursuing the goal. So are you able to set a goal that is big and ambitious and exciting? And then if you only reach 10% in a year, are you able to not feel like a failure? Because you did something. You moved in the right direction. Maybe you moved in the right direction. You realize this is actually not my direction. Now I know that I have to pivot and I feel like I'm starting from square one, but you're not starting from square one because now you have information you didn't have before. And you wouldn't have had it if you didn't pursue the goal in the first place. So are you able to create a goal? It's almost like when I set goals, it's not something that's measurable. It's not something that is a tick box exercise. It's not something that is necessary. It's not time bound. It's not specific. It's like I know what I want my life to look like. And because I know what that life I want it to look like, I have guidance in terms of what direction do I need to walk in. And however far I've reached in a goal, I'm going to celebrate it because I got closer. I did something that was in that direction and I celebrate every single moment of it. And what I do is that I insert little pockets of joy into the process so that I can enjoy the process of simply following the goal. I make sure that I pay attention to when is there something for me to celebrate and what are ways that I can celebrate just even the small things. And I bring joy into the process. I bring excitement into the process. I bring celebration into the process. And then I set these goals that are really, really, really big. My future imagined life for myself is ridiculous. absolutely ridiculous. And some people are going to think, but what if you have that vision of your life and you never reach that point? Well, I make sure that I enjoy the process so much that even the process of achieving it, I'm excited about it. Even the process of stepping closer to it, I'm excited about it. If I never reach the end destination of what I'm seeing for myself, I'm going to be okay because I did something to move towards it. So at least regret is not going to be my thing. At least I'm not going to face the end of my life looking bad, feeling regret. Because I did some of the things that most people will never do. I created a life for myself that most people would never create. But you're not there yet. No, but even now, I'm so excited about what I have been able to do for myself and what I'm able to support other people in doing. And I see the steps that I'm taking. Every single year, I'm moving closer and closer and closer and closer. And every single year, I see so much progress. And every single year, I say, I'm a completely different person than I was a year ago. And if I hadn't done this work to move stuff, and people would say, but you're not really, all of these boxes haven't been ticked. And you can't really measure all of this progress. But I know myself. I feel different. I see myself from a year ago, look at pictures, and I remember what it was like being on the inside of me. And now is very, very, very different. And every single year it gets better and better and better and better and better, exponentially. And if I didn't have the vision of where I'm going, I would just be stuck running in the same loop. I would just be stuck somewhere, not making the moves towards this thing that I know that I see for myself moving forward. But if you're scared of setting the goal because you think you might fail, then you will never learn all of the things that are important for you to learn in the process of reaching it or just moving closer to it. If you're scared of setting the goal because of what other people might think, then your whole life is going to be dependent on what other people think. And guess what? If your life depends on what other people think, you're not going to live the life that you want for yourself. I realized at some point, I've spent most of my life, right? I'm well up in my 30s now. I've spent most of my life when people say, oh, I know who I am, I know myself. And I was like, I kind of know myself, but I don't really know myself like that, you know? And I realized that I have been so dependent on external validation. I've been so dependent on living life and being a person that other people would validate, that I don't know what actually feels good to me. And I had to connect with myself in a whole new way before I could even learn to understand what do I want. I had to reconnect with my own feelings. I had to reconnect with my own intuition. I had to reconnect with myself in a way that when someone else tells me, oh, you should be doing this instead, I know when it feels right and I know when it feels wrong. And I'm not going to do the things that feel wrong just because someone else tells me to. And that's all of a sudden, I can sit here in 2025 and say, I know myself. There's still so much more to discover because I know that there's much more to me, but I know myself. And I had to release external validation and external expectation in order for me to truly get to know myself. And in order for me to truly get to know myself, in doing that, I also realized what I actually wanted my goals to look like. I realized what I want my life to look like because I had been so dependent on trying to create something that other people would like, that I completely forgot to figure out what I like. And what many people do is that they set goals that aren't actually aligned with what they personally want. They set goals based on what other people want for them. They create a life based on what their parents said that they should want. Or they've been conditioned to believe this is what a good life looks like. So they've been trying to create that. I mean, just thinking about if you've gotten a degree, what made you think that was a good degree for you to study? I know for me, I disliked most of it. I enjoyed learning Mandarin. I studied Mandarin in business school, and I enjoyed learning that. I enjoyed studying it. I had fun practicing the characters. I had fun practicing the language and the tones. But anything related to business, honestly, I didn't really enjoy it that much. Anything that had to do with like research and writing a thesis, that was not fun for me at all. That was something that it just had to get done. It was a tick box exercise. And then I realized much later in life that if I could choose now, I would have chosen very differently. I would have chosen something that had much more to do with humans and had much more to do with connection and had much more to do with growth and development, personal development, than I would have chosen business studies. And to be fair, I've learned much more about business from my business coach than I ever did in the 6 years I spent in business school. So when you're setting your goals for the year, can you figure out what is it truly that you want? And if you don't know what that is, how about the goal for you could be figuring out what I want? This year, I want to figure out what I want. And then by the end of the year, hopefully you've done the inner work to be able to say, I have a good idea about what I want. I know, at least I know what direction I want to get into. Or maybe you get really specific and you're like, I want to set up a lawn mowing business. That's my biggest passion. I would have never done that. Or something like that. Maybe that could be your goal. Could you set goals that are much more about you figuring out who you are, that are much more about you enjoying life as you're pursuing your goals? Can you set goals that are a vision of your future, and without trying to make it a smart goal? Smart goals for me really only are important if you need other people to buy into your goal. If you need to sit down and be very, very clear on, this is where we're going. Do you all understand it in the same way? Do we measure it all in the same way? Do we agree on a timeline? Do we agree on... Now it makes more sense to have SMART goals. But if it's for you, how about you envision the most beautiful life that you could dream of? Maybe you want to be spending your life in a wooden cottage, in a forest by a lake, and you want to be able to sit and read books, and you want to be able to just have your own schedule. What would it take for you to end up there? And if it takes you 10 years to build that life, will it be worth it? What about, instead of trying to create goals based on what everyone else tells you, this is what success looks like, this is what you're meant to be pursuing, you say to yourself, this is what I want. This is what is the most important thing for me. And then you start figuring out, okay, this is what the life that I really, truly, deeply desire. And I see that as my Northern Star. Now, all I have to do is start taking the steps that moves in that direction. If that's how you set goals, what would that look like for you? So if you want to get deeper into this detail, I have an event on Saturday that I'm co-hosting with Bilizu Mahoza here in Kigali. And you can just reach out. I'll send you the link to sign up. Or you can join my Identity Alchemy membership. It opens up very soon. It has already been open before I closed it down for a little bit, worked on uploading some courses, and now it's reopening, and it's going to reopen with a 3-module course on goal setting and creating goals that you can really connect with and enjoy. And then a new course is coming next month, and then every month we're doing something new. So if you are interested in that, let me know. I'll send you the link to sign up for that. And apart from that, if you have any questions or comments, or if this resonated with you in any way, or if something was not clear to you, please let me know in the comments to this YouTube video. I would love to hear what you have to say. If this resonated with you, please let me know. And if there's something that you would like for me to touch on in future videos, it's really, really helpful for me. I am a respond kind of person, which means that if you prompt me to something, that works for me. That means I have something to really talk to you about. So often when I come home and I do videos, it's because a conversation has happened throughout the day that triggered a thought. And that thought is now this video. So thank you so much for today. I hope you have a beautiful weekend. And I'll see you next week. Bye.